A few decades ago, it would have been hard to predict that a typical American coffee and donut shop would become the hangout place for young adults in the Middle East. After all, this is the birthplace of coffee and sweet shops. But the old world has grown since then. The region, which spans from the Middle East all the way to Africa, is home to some of the world's most interesting emerging markets.
This is an extremely diverse region economically, politically, geographically, and culturally. It includes some of the world's wealthiest countries, as well as some of the world's poorest. It includes highly developed economies that have become global leaders in financial services and logistics, as well as countries whose economy is based primarily on the exploitation of their almost unimaginably rich natural resources. I think it's fair to say that this region traditionally has not been at the center of U.S. business radar. Many see it as dangerous and difficult, perhaps not worth the trouble. The reality on the ground today is rather different, and that reality is changing very quickly. Our presenters today will give you their take on that reality from the inside.
Companies from all over the world, as well as the US, are tapping into these markets and blending in outstanding ways with its local cultures. The idea of think global, act local is a method well in place here. And this is just the start, the beginning of the golden age.
There are 108 U.S. export assistance centers across the United States, staffed with international trade specialists who have years of experience helping companies successfully export their goods and services to markets around the world. Our trade specialists work closely with their colleagues in overseas markets to provide companies such as yours with expert counseling and advice.
The United Arab Emirates is one of the fastest developing countries on the planet and at the forefront of innovation in many major fields. It holds the current record for the world's highest freestanding structure, the world's tallest hotel, and the biggest malls.
I believe the most common misperception among Americans about the Arabian Gulf is related to safety and security.
The UAE enjoys very strong political stability and owes most of its success to the oil-rich emirate of Abu Dhabi.
The UAE has almost 10% of the world's proven oil reserves and 5% of proven gas reserves. The UAE government is using these oil revenues to develop the country at a staggering pace.
Dubai's GDP stands at $16.4 billion and has been growing at a compound annual rate of 8% over the last 10 years. It is expected to surpass the growth rate of China. UAE is part of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, which includes Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar.
Saudi Arabia has the largest oil reserves in the world at over 260 billion barrels, which is approximately 1/4 of global reserves. The Saudi economy is the largest in the Arab world, representing 1/4 of total Arab GDP. Saudi's economy registered $310 billion in 2006. Saudi Arabia has an expanding domestic market of 23 million consumers and is growing at an average rate of 3.2% per year.
The Gulf's combined GDP reached over $717.8 billion, led by spectacular growths in the United Arab Emirates and Qatar.
Qatar's GDP growth is very strong, averaging 19.9% over the previous 5 years, with the oil and gas sector accounting for 60% of overall GDP growth in 2005. The U.S. was Qatar's second largest trading partner last year after Japan, but is expected to be the #1 exporter to Qatar starting this year.
With the full support of U.S. Department of Commerce and increased trade agreements, many major U.S. companies are already well established in these markets.